Hey everyone, so today I'll be covering my master team for Go Battle League. I apologize for the delay. I've mostly been spending this time trying to figure out ways to create an anti-meta team or a couple anti-meta teams to handle what you mostly see prevalent in Master League. Unfortunately, if I'm going to be completely honest, I was not able to find a consistent anti-meta team, and I feel like it would be dishonest for me to make it seem like you can use anti-meta teams to succeed in Go Battle League Master League. So the team that I found most successful was Heatran, Giratina Origin Form, and Dialga. And so I'm going to put their move sets on the screen so that way you can figure out which ones I ran with. For Heatran, I decided to run Stone Edge over Iron Head. That's mainly because it will give me a harder hitting move against the Giratinas, as well as Kyogre and some of the counters that Heatran runs into. The trade-off there is really you can't bait with Iron Head as much, and this is because it costs the same amount of energy to use Stone Edge and Flamethrower versus Iron Head's a little bit cheaper. And then for Dialga, I decided to run Draco Meteor over Thunder, and mostly that's just because Draco Meteor is just such a hard-hitting move. Being able to one-shot other Dialgas with Draco Meteor and just the other dragons is definitely a very useful ability, so kind of the main reason why I decided to run that over Thunder. So I'll go over some matches. In this first matchup, as you can see from the thumbnail, I'm really just showcasing how strong Giratina Origin Form can be. So in this matchup, I'm running Giratina Origin Form, Heatran, and Dialga. And initially, I actually led Giratina Origin for a while, but for the rest of the videos after this one, you'll see that I end up leading Heatran just because I found it to be a little more reliable as a lead, because I end up losing a lot of leads with Giratina Origin Form, and so that's kind of why I decided to switch it. So I got a boost, and if you haven't realized from your matches, having a stat boost from Ominous Wind boosts your attack and defensive stat products or maybe not stat products, stat points by 2, and so essentially it just shoots Giratina stats off the chart. I'll show a graphic on screen so that way you can see kind of how big of a difference it is, and it's pretty significant. So same thing with Ancient Power 2. Anything with those stat boosts will really jack up the strength of those Pokemon. And as you can see, I didn't even need to switch to anything else. I literally just ran a Giratina all the way through. Yeah, so very overpowered, and so obviously that's kind of an unfortunate aspect of Master League because all the Pokemons are already super strong. So this is where I'm really using the team I consistently use, and I'm going against Bihaz, very top player. And so in the first few videos, I'll show situations where I'm winning the switch advantage and how to play that out. So unfortunately for Bihaz in this situation, I do have switch advantage, and it's kind of hard for him to come back from this one just because I kind of have a counter for every Pokemon he has. So this is Dialga versus Giratina Alter Form. Giratina Alter Form is actually quite tanky, and so you can see that it actually survived the Iron Head even with the HP it was at. Wasn't able to get to an Iron Head. That's totally fine. I already had a Flamethrower charged up. I'm going to shield because if it's Draco Meteor, which it is, it's going to do quite a bit of damage and pretty much almost one-shot the Heatran. And so usually I shield Heatran even if they might be baiting Iron Head because it's still a winning matchup for Heatran. So that's why it's still worth it in my opinion. And if they drop a Draco Meteor, then you're definitely in luck because you shielded right. And then Giratina Origin Form is actually really solid against Melmetal. Melmetal can't really hit it for super effective damage with any of its moves, and it's already really tanky, and then the ghost moves are not resisted by Melmetal. And so Melmetal does resist the charge moves from Giratina Alter Form, so that's kind of a trade-off there, and that's probably a big reason why a lot of people run Giratina Origin Form in Master League. And so Bihaz does actually a really good switch right there, and so I wasn't able to use my last Ominous Wind, and at this point I believe I shield because I just want to preserve this Heatran, and at this point I was able to farm up in the energy. I know that at the very most he can get to maybe another Iron Head, and that wouldn't be enough to take out the Heatran, and then I'll have enough energy to take out the Melmetal right away. So definitely really well played from him given the situation he was in. Again, I'm playing another matchup where I win the lead just to kind of show you how that's played out. So same thing, Dialga. This time around, they brought in Melmetal, and yeah, I guess it's kind of a similar lineup, but I believe they have something different in the back, which is why I'm showing this video as well. And then, so I'm just going to spam Ominous Winds. If I get a boost, great. If I don't, it's not a big deal. The main reason is because you kind of want your Giratina to have kind of lower HP, and the reason by the time they switch in to the next mon, because that way they can't really farm you for much. You have to be very confident in terms of how much damage your Giratina can take, and I played this out matchup a couple times, so I knew that I didn't need a shield and could still take out the opponent. And then so I'm kind of spamming, trying to get to Ominous Wind, but wasn't able to in time. Not a big deal. Still have Heatran in the back, so I'm going to use the Flamethrower. And some players might time the switch right when you're using the Flamethrower, so you always have to kind of be wary of that. And then so again, I'm going to shield just in case, and it's a Thunder, and so Thunder does quite a bit of damage to Giratina. And like I said, so this player did really well by switching right into Giratina to absorb the Flamethrower damage. It's going to be resisted, but they have Dialga, and Dialga takes out Giratina Origin. And so like I said, Giratina Origin is not nearly as tanky as Giratina Ultra Form. You don't need a shield, especially if you're coming in at near full health for each side. You don't need a shield, and so my opponent really has to gamble here and not shield, because if they did shield and it was baited, then they would have lost. If they shielded on Draco Meteor, they kind of still would lose down the line, because Heatran would be able to do quite a bit of damage. So best case scenario is they lead Togekiss into your Heatran. Heatran is both fire and steel, so it's going to 4 times resist charm like no other, and so even on a boosted Togekiss, it actually does decent against it too. And so I was able to win switch advantage again on that situation, and because my opponent's shield, I'm just going to shield as well to match their shields, because I don't want to be farmed down by the Ominous Wind. And so I know I can survive this Ominous Wind, so I'm just going to keep going down. And my opponent actually got a boost, so it could have been actually a lot trickier. So I actually was anticipating the Togekiss to come through, so that's why I just kind of spammed the Iron Head. I probably could have gone for the Draco Meteor if I just didn't throw it right away, but that's okay. I still have switch advantage, and Giratina Ultra Origin Form is, like I said, can take out Melmetal really well. And then Stone Edge does just as well against Togekiss as Iron Head. Maybe some slight DPS differences, but it's not really, it's pretty negligible. And then right here, I'm not going to shield, because even if it's superpower, I don't really need to shield that situation, because I still have Giratina Origin Form in the back. And so I'm just going to farm down with some Fire Spins, and then my opponent's going to drop Rock Slide. Rock Slide does actually a decent amount of damage to Heatran, which is why I usually still shield it, even if it's not a superpower. And my opponent ends up quitting at that point, realizing that the match was over. So was able to win that one. So now I'm going to show you some matches where I'm losing the lead and how to overcome that. Not necessarily easy all the time, but so going against Kyogre with Heatran's probably like one of the worst scenarios you can have. And so I'm going to go in with Dialga. Dialga does decent against Kyogre, and the main thing is Giratina Origin Form does really well against Kyogre. So what's important right here is recognizing what your win conditions are. I actually don't know why my opponent went Draco Meteor, because Iron Head would have been fine there. But either way, I was going to shield it. And so as long as I win switch advantage here, I'm pretty confident I can win this matchup, because usually they have Togekiss or some steel in the back. And then now I have Giratina able to kind of lock into the Kyogre, and then Kyogre takes a long time to get to Blizzard. So I'm just going to keep going, and then I'm going to shield just in case it's a Blizzard. I wasn't really counting the waterfalls, which I probably should have been, but it's totally fine, because they were able to, they were using a Surf. No big deal. I know that they can't get to Blizzard in time, and then we're just going to go straight for a Shadow Ball here, or they'll drop the Ancient Power. So if they drop the Ancient Power, no big deal. Actually was still able to get to, I believe it's a Shadow Ball too, or Ominous Wind. I guess I clicked the other one. But that's totally fine. Like I said, Heatran will wall off all of Togekiss charm damage, and it'll only take neutral from Flamethrower and Ancient Power. So that's kind of how you had to win that one. You have to win switch advantage there. So again, going to a Kyogre lead, and so this one I'm going to showcase how to come back even when you don't win switch advantage, right? So the way my opponent can win this one is if they double shield my Dialga. And so I'm going to shield, and if they don't shield the next one, I win switch priority. But if they do shield the next one, I'll have at least one shield up. And so I still prefer switch priority in this scenario, but you just can't. My Dialga just doesn't have enough HP at that point. And then right here, I'm just going to farm down with Heatran. And so if it's Iron Head, it's going to do very low damage. If it's Thunder or Draco Meteor, I know I can still survive. And then so I'm going to go straight in with Giratina, because I know they're going to counter with Kyogre. And then luckily my opponent had a Giratina in back. If they had like something like a Snorlax, it's pretty much game over. There's just really no way to win in that situation. But I'm going to shield this just because I know that if it was Shadow Ball, it would have been bad, but at this point, I know that I could pretty much take out this Kyogre because it probably won't get to a Blizzard in time, and then we go straight for the Ominous Wind and then take that one out. So the only reason I was able to pull that off is because I had an extra shield, and my opponent actually ends up quitting in that one, but it was going to be over anyway. But I needed the extra shield for that Giratina matchup, mirror matchup. Okay, so Rhyperior also very strong against my team. The really only main counter is Giratina, but I can't switch Giratina because then I'm switch locked, and then they could bring Giratina counter, and then I'm pretty much done for. So I'm not going to shield anything this Rhyperior throws at me. They end up throwing Surf. Doesn't do enough damage, but it's totally fine. So they're down a shield, but they have switch advantage. But now I'm able to lock my Giratina onto their Rhyperior. They can swap out, and then I can swap out too. So that puts me in a decent spot. They want CMP, so I was going to do that just to farm a little bit more. And then they bring in Snorlax. Snorlax, very hard wall to Giratina, and so I know that no matter what, I need to take out the Snorlax, because if I don't, it's pretty much game over. And then I believe I don't shield, and the reason I don't shield is because it was kind of a gamble. I wasn't really counting the licks per se, but if they land the Earthquake, it would have one-shotted me, but I needed to kind of gamble to come back from the hole I'm in. And something I really do enjoy about Master League, even though I don't like the fact that it's so meta heavy, is that okay, so right here they do a quick switch, try to catch me off guard, and luckily I was able to switch out in time, and then they go for a body slam. That's totally fine. Even an Earthquake I don't think would have been enough to take out Giratina, and then go in for just Ominous Wind, and then they have Metagross in the back. And I kind of had a feeling because they're really trying to get rid of my Giratina, and so that worked out pretty well. So next matchup going against Dragon Silk, a top player in Canada. And so Giratina Ultra Form, also a really good counter to Heatran, and so I had to switch out for that one. And then here I'm showcasing the matchup with Groudon. And so the good thing with Groudon is they really can't bait with much, and so as long as you double shield a Groudon, you can usually win on a switch in with Dialga. Unless they're like really quick with it, so I know that's the case, and I believe I shield right here. I wasn't sure if I was going to get to Iron Head in time, but instead I do a quick switch into Giratina Origin, and then my opponent switches into Giratina Altered. And the good news about Giratina Origin versus Giratina Altered is you have a Shadow Ball damage versus Altered kind of has to spam Dragon Claws, which isn't as hard hitting as Shadow Ball, so which shields down Giratina Origins much better in my opinion. And I'm going to go probably try to get to that Shadow Ball, and I do, and it's actually just a Togekiss. And so I think my opponent probably could have swapped to Togekiss instead, and so I think he was going for a quick blind swap, and then I quickly switch in for knowing that he probably had an Earthquake ready, and I was able to absorb the Earthquake with my Dialga, and then now I can comfortably get to Stone Edge in time. So as I was saying earlier in like a few seconds ago, the thing I like about Master League is it really teaches you how to understand your win conditions, because it is a refined meta, so you pretty much know a lot of times midway through the match like how you can pull out a win unless they have something really unexpected in the back. So in this matchup, I'm going to show you how to play the mirror, and I didn't know this at the time, but my opponent is actually running the same exact team as me. And so I'm going to shield, and so here's the thing where not having Iron Head kind of sets you back. You can't bait at all in this scenario, because Flamethrower and Stone is going to take just as long to get to. And then I had a feeling that my opponent was baiting because they got to the charge move a little faster, and I noticed that my CP was higher, so I figured I would usually win that CMP, and so that's why I chose not to shield. And so, but had they baited me, timing it better, I would definitely be in trouble because they could probably get to that second Flamethrower faster than I could get to my third one. So now I have switch advantage, which is good. I'm going to shield just in case it was a Shadow Ball. And they throw a Shadow Ball now, totally fine. And then now I'm going to go in with Draco Meteor. This is why I like Draco Meteor over Thunder. It's going to be able to one-shot the opposing Dialga, and then now I'm going to bring in my own Giratina Origin, and then just hit it with the Ominous Wind. My opponent has to hit me with a Shadow Ball plus another Ominous Wind to take me out, and so that's why I was able to take it out. So, mirrors are kind of tricky sometimes, but that's kind of one example of that. And so this is a situation where I lost the lead, And then I'm going in now, and they have their own Heatran. And so not as many people run Heatran as you would think in Masters, at least from my experience. But Heatran's actually really solid against the team I'm running because they can really lock down that Dialga. So right here, even if I shielded it, it wouldn't have been a good idea because I already used Draco Meteor and my attack's reduced. And so even if I get to another Draco Meteor, it's not going to be enough to KO. Because that dragon damage is still resisted even though it does so much. And yeah, so my opponent is running a similar moveset as me, I assume, and so also Stone Edge and Flamethrower. And so like I said before, it's really solid against opposing like counters and stuff. And so I did a quick switch just because I was worried they're going to throw another Stone Edge. I'm not going to shield the Ominous Wind just because I kind of had to gamble at this point just because I'm playing from behind. And Fire Spins just don't do much damage to Giratina because they're dragon typing and resistant. At this point, I'm going to have to start shielding, and then I go in with a Stone Edge. My opponent's definitely a step ahead in every situation. I tried to go for a quick switch. I do end up shielding here, which I don't remember if it was a good idea or not. And I'm just going to try to switch in. Oh, yeah. And then, yeah, that's why I lost. So they had a Snorlax in the back, and anyone that's ever played this matchup will know that it's pretty much a lost cause. Even if you get like a double boost, it would be pretty hard. And Snorlax is actually decent against my team as well because it has options against everything on my team, especially if it's running Superpower, but even Earthquake one-shot. Heatran, Superpower does quite a bit of damage as well, and that's Dialga. So that's kind of showing a situation where like this team's not unbeatable, and so I'm kind of showing you some losses as well just to know what to expect. Sometimes you just can't win against every team composition. That's totally fine. So another thing on my team is really weak to is Garchomp. I think my record against Garchomp teams is like, I don't know, like 1-5 or something. It's actually very hard for my team to beat it. Best matchup is really Giratina for the most part, and even then Garchomp just does really well against the team because it has it could bait with Sand Tomb, or even if it doesn't have Sand Tomb, the Earthquake would do a lot of damage to Dialga. It's very tanky too, so even the Dragon Breaths won't take it out as fast. Obviously Heatran is just terrible against Garchomp, and then has Outrage in most situations against the Giratinas. And so trying to get rid of this Garchomp, and so I know I'm probably gonna have to shield right here because the Outrage is gonna one-shot me, and does. My opponent's very smart about this because they have 2 shields, so they're not even gonna try to bait. They're gonna go straight double Outrage. It's a smarter move, and they know they could get to in time before I could take it out with another Ominous Wind. So Outrage does a ton of damage, and then even though yeah, and then they even won the CMP right there. And Sand Tomb, even though it's not gonna one-shot Heatran, still does quite a bit of damage. And then the defense debuff, and then also my opponent had a Thunder ready, and yeah, so that's pretty much GG. So Garchomp, a very difficult mon to deal with for my team. In this matchup, I'm going to show you I think this is the one time I actually beat a Garchomp, so I lose the lead advantage too. A lot of people actually lead Garchomp, which also makes it really hard for my team. If they had it in the back and I could lock in a Dialga or a Giratina against it, it could be a little better. So right here, I go straight for Draco Meteor. I need to come out with at least a shield advantage, and so I do in that situation. And at this point, I'm going in with Heatran. And no matter what, like I said before, Draco Meteor or Thunder is not going to be enough to KO, and so I'm just going to tank it. Draco Meteor is even better because it's going to have resist Dragon Breaths. I guess I don't risk farming because I don't want to have to spend a shield on Heatran. And then now I go in with Giratina. And then I'm kind of surprised that my opponent hasn't switched out. And so that makes me think that my opponent probably has something that's weak to Giratina in the back. So I'm going to shield it just because I was kind of expecting might have been, I don't know, Outrage or something. And with mud shots, it's going to charge pretty quickly. And then, like I said, it is something that's weak to Giratina in the back. It's Metagross. Giratina is going to do very, very well against it. And I do shield because even if it doesn't really matter what move it is, it's going to do quite a bit of damage because my defense was dropped. And then that gives me a perfect chance to farm from then on. And then now I was able to farm, have a Shadow Ball ready, able to take out the Garchomp. And so that's kind of like the one way I was able to play around that. Still a very difficult Pokemon to maneuver around with this team, but overall I haven't seen that many Garchomps, so I think that it's not been the biggest issue. I know that's not my typical anti-meta teams, but unfortunately with how refined the meta is with Masters and how dominant some of the top threats are, it's unfortunately just near impossible to consistently win and do well in Masters while going anti-meta. I hope you enjoyed the video. I don't really know if I'm gonna make any more Masters videos just because the meta unfortunately is kind of stale in my opinion, but I'm definitely going to work on some other videos for the future related to PvP stuff, so be on the lookout for that. If you like the video, feel free to give it a like and share and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you all next time.